Okay, right. So it's time to write an essay. Most people are sitting there thinking, I hate writing. I don't know how to do it. I never know how to start. So what we're going to learn today is a very simple way to organize your ideas. It's kind of like a master plan. All you have to do is take your basic original idea, divide it the way I'm going to recommend, and put it all on paper. It's that easy. Now, obviously, it's not that easy. There's a bit of work, of course, but you'll be fine if you just follow these steps. So what we're going to look at today is a basic student guide for how to write a good 5-paragraph academic essay. Now, obviously, the first thing we need to understand is the basic structure of the essay, and it's going to come in 3 main parts. We're going to look at an introduction, a body, and of course, a conclusion. Now let's take a look at each of those parts in detail to see what we really mean. First of all, the introduction. The introduction is like the beginning of a movie. It's very important. And the first thing we want to do is to get people's attention. You've got to capture their attention and make people want to actually read whatever it is you're writing about. So there's lots of ways of doing that. One is to use a question. Ask a question that stimulates people's curiosity. Another thing you could do is say something that shocks them. Maybe give them a statistic that people go, wow, really? Are you sure? And they want to read what you've written so that they can understand more about this topic. There are lots of techniques for getting people's attention depending on what you're actually writing about. Now, the next thing, of course, is to answer a really simple question. What do my readers need to know to understand this topic? For example, if I'm writing an essay about Ecuador, I know everything about Ecuador. I've lived here for a long time. But if the person who's going to read my essay has never visited Ecuador, they don't live in this continent, they might know nothing. So I might want to tell them where the country is, what the language is that we speak here, the currency, something about the history or the political situation, anything that I think is going to help them understand the topic better. Now, at the end of your introduction, this is the end of your first block of text, the end of your introduction, you're going to use what we call a thesis statement. And a thesis statement is where you take your main general topic and you break it down, probably into 3 parts. So, for example, if I'm talking about Ecuador, I might want to talk about places to visit, the typical foods that we eat here, or local traditions. I might want to talk about the political situation, the financial situation, and the cultural situation. I might want to talk about 3 different regions: the coast, the highlands, and the jungle, the Amazon region. Of course, there are lots of ways of dividing topics. That will depend on exactly what you're writing about. But of course, your thesis statement is a simple sentence that basically shows what those 3 main parts are. Now, once you've got through your introduction, you're ready for a body paragraph. And as I said before, the specific number of body paragraphs really depends on how difficult your topic is, how you want to break your topic down. But of course, a 5-paragraph essay, if you've got an introduction and a conclusion, that means you're going to have 3 body paragraphs, which is a pretty good way to have a reasonably good quality essay. 4 body paragraphs is going to make your essay much longer, maybe more technical, maybe more difficult to read. And there are times when that's necessary, but not always. And you might only sometimes have 2 body paragraphs, particularly if you're looking at sort of an advantage, disadvantage, or a comparison contrast type of situation. That's going to be a logical number of paragraphs for you. But otherwise, most of the time, you're probably going to have 3 body paragraphs. Now, as I said before, in the thesis statement, you broke your main topic down into 3 different parts, 3 subtopics. Take that first subtopic, whatever that was, from your thesis statement and write that into your first sentence of your body paragraph. That's what we call the topic sentence. That's how we know what this new paragraph is about, because you're telling us in that first sentence. You're not doing anything else yet. You're not explaining it. You're not giving evidence. You're not giving away the end of the story. There's no spoiler in a topic sentence. It's just where you're saying what this paragraph's going to be about. Now, the second, third, maybe fourth sentences in each of your body paragraphs is where you do that. You're giving the evidence, you're giving the explanations, you're giving the information, the examples, whatever it is that you want to really explain. It's like the meat in the burger. The topic sentence was just the bread. It's necessary, but it's not the whole thing. This is where, with supporting sentences, where we're giving all of the interesting things that we want to include. Now, at the end, it's probably a good idea to have a concluding sentence, but it's not the conclusion of your essay, remember. It's just the conclusion of that particular part of the topic. So it shouldn't sound like it's the end of the essay, not yet anyway. Now, you repeat that process 3 times if you have 3 body paragraphs, using each of the topics that you mentioned in the thesis statement at the end of your introduction. Now, next, you're ready for your conclusion. And conclusions really are great because all you're doing is repeating a lot of what you've already said before. It could be a final recommendation. If you've been explaining something all the way through your essay, why were you explaining it? What do you want people to learn from what you've explained? There's got to be some kind of final recommendation. It might be just a summary of the ideas. The typical thing that we often see in conclusion is when people say things like, so as you can see, or so as we have learned, we have to do this. It's basically repeating the ideas that we've already mentioned. Another thing we might do is give a result based on the evidence. It depends very much on what the topic is that you've already been talking about. The different types of essays are going to have different types of conclusion. And obviously that can include things like a prediction and so on. So just to go back and take a quick look at everything we've looked at in this video. Structure. You've got an introduction, you've got a body, you've got a conclusion. Make sure each of those steps, all 3 of those steps, include the internal parts, the internal sequence that's going to make your essay come together as one block of writing. Now, writing isn't easy for a lot of people. We know that. But I think it's more important that we just get on and do it and understand that with practice, everything gets easy. So keep calm and write more. Thank you for watching.